Right, welcome everybody to our leadership and governance and committee meeting. We have one apology for today. Councillor Nixon. Do we have any leaves of absence? Nope. Everyone had time to go through the previous minutes. Get someone that's read that.
I wasn't here.
Move Councillor Remington. Second Councillor Roll. All those in favour? Unanimous. Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first report we have on our agenda today is an information report, just to let you know what we're working on in relation to our insurance portfolio for this year. So it's just a little bit about the process of our annual review on council's insurance coverage. We have a bit of a brief overview of what we currently have insured in our portfolio coverage and the work being undertaken at the moment to refine and improve our asset schedule, and what work we're currently undertaking to potentially reduce premiums for the 2017-18 renewal. Mary Ryan's here with us today and is our governance officer who predominantly manages our insurance portfolio for council, and has done for several years now, so she's well experienced in the area. Our current insurances are placed with the Queensland Local Government Mutual Liability Pool, or LGM. We do have a summary page attached with current insurance policies and level of cover there to have a look at. The acting CEO and myself had discussions with another Queensland council recently and talked extensively about how they have managed to reduce their premiums significantly by looking at potentially what assets they may not insure going forward. So having a bit of a self-assessable insurance fund going forward. So doing that over a period of a few years, they've managed to make significant savings and have a bit of a pool set aside to self-fund those things such as, I guess, toilet blocks that maybe if a flood came through a residential building, you might choose not to insure that. So on a good analysis of our assets, we may be able to substantially reduce our premiums and look at things a little bit more holistically in that respect. We do have LGM Assets coming to do a bit of a presentation to the Strategic Briefing Forum on the 10th of April. So it's an opportunity for us all to ask a few questions around insurance in that space to the experts while they're here. So I might just hand over to Mary now and let her talk you through a little bit of the project that we have underway presently. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Marianne. As Marianne indicated, each year we go through our insurance schedule for assets that require insurance and renew for the following financial year. Last year, we undertook a significant project as part of the review process. Prior to this, we were with a private insurance provider and have been for a significant number of years. And LGM just launched the previous year for the first time their municipal asset pool. So they provided the opportunity for someone with the expertise in local government to insure council's assets for the first time. So having received quotation from LGM and our provider of the time, we made quite a substantial savings switching to LGM pool. So I think in terms of reviewing and looking for savings this financial year, the potential will be there. The majority of the financial savings would have taken place for the current financial year, but we do have the opportunity to reduce that further. One of the ways of doing that is exploring the types of insurance cover in place. There there are two types of insurance cover council have at the moment. That when we reviewed it with the LGM asset manager recently, he queried why those two particular policies were in place. So we will have the opportunity to explore that further and what the additional benefits from having a separate policy for that type of cover will be. And then it will be back to management and council to discuss in detail then whether they feel we continue with those types of insurance cover, whether we purchase new insurance. So for example, with the savings we made this financial year, council took out some additional insurance cover. And this coming financial year, we're looking at taking out a policy for stall holders based on some queries from local community groups and events council run that would have, as the insurance company refer to it, a mum and dad style stall. So it's a non-commercial stall, so just having cover for those type of activities at council events. Another significant project that's in conjunction with this is looking at environmental impairment insurance. So that was one of the gaps identified at the start of this project. Council currently don't have that specific insurance cover. It is extremely detailed and it is an extensive project on its own. So that is something we're looking at undertaking with the water utilities and waste management teams to have the environmental impairment cover in place. So essentially, what it covers would be a future event where councils' properties potentially contaminates water or private land or something along that line. So say there was a leak in the landfill or the water was contaminated, something along that line. So again, it's the environmental cost of cleaning up is not covered at the moment because you have to have specific environmental impairment cover. So that's a project that's forming part of this. As is the fraud and corruption insurance. So it's a very specific one separate to the cyber liability cover that we have at the moment. So fraud and corruption, I think you may have seen some emails circulating recently where you will get essentially a broker's invoice that will come into your company that looks like a legitimate invoice from a current creditor or supplier, and it looks exactly the same as the previous one. However, it's probably out of sync, so you really shouldn't have been receiving an invoice from them. But on face value, it looks legitimate and it can sometimes be processed as an invoice. So it's to protect for that type of risk. So that's a policy that we're currently completing a substantial questionnaire on to get a quote for that. So there will be, I suppose, that's the positive side of the gap analysis, looking at the additional policies we can have to, I suppose, reduce council's risk in that area. Does anyone have any questions on the additional side of things before I focus on the potential removal?
So, through the chair, I think the opportunity when LGM are here on site on the 10th to talk at our strategy meeting is a good opportunity to look at the trends out there insurance-wise, and certainly cyber security is one of those trends that I'm sure they'll be discussing on the day, and the cost-benefit analysis of that type of insurance. And I guess things change in this space all the time, and what we need to insure for, certainly we need to be on top of, and I guess that's the benefit of, bringing this to you today to get you thinking in that space prior to them coming on the 10th, so we can, have some thought around that and think about some questions we can ask them from our perspective on the day. Certainly we will have a lot of questions for them throughout our process of review and on the day as well, from our perspective to certainly plug the gaps that we potentially see now, but also to continue to refine our portfolio. What we find through these types of analysis jobs that we do are that we have a review of what our previous claims have been, and sometimes you find that you've been carrying a lot of coverage in your claims for very little benefit. So there may be, in fleet over a period of 5 years, very minimal claims, but very huge payments made for the policies in that respect. So, there's some of the things that you need to balance about your self-insurance and having a fund there to fund that as opposed to paying premiums all the time, and the claims just aren't warranting having that insurance fund there. So that's the type of analysis we're doing.
David, through the chair, Marianne, from the audit committee, there'll be I think in the last meeting, wasn't it, we were talking about the risk of this type of risk.
Yes.
So, so do we have another meeting with them before?
We have a meeting on the 23rd of this month.
Yes.
23rd? No,
So before then,
27th, I think, 27th of
so I
this
think
month.
that there'll be probably recommendations from the audit committee too, as to what we
That's,
should be looking at.
yes, yeah. That's a good point to ask the question there.
We ask the question
Audit
then.
committee
Yep. So that was-
Input for that strategy session.
So I know that the insurance companies have been getting around organisations and saying, you know, you should be insuring for this, that and the other thing in the cyberspace. So it might be timely now to actually ask the question, is that type of insurance worthwhile? Or
Yes,
what
yeah.
is worthwhile?
Because it is such a new space too, I guess.
Yeah,
There's not that much precedent out there, so we need to ask all the questions and look to the experts to provide that advice for us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Insurance companies jumped on it straight away.
Yes, absolutely. Because there have been some big payouts unnecessarily in that space. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so that was just a report, of course.
Okay.
Scratch.
Okay, the second report on the agenda, second and last report on our agenda is just a bit, sorry, did you?
Just the question was, how do we want to discuss the review of the actual asset schedules from portfolio and removing some of the insurance cover?
I think that's probably part of the discussion in the strategy session, but I'm happy to open it up if you want
Do you want to discuss that now or within the strategy?
I think we've got a little bit more analysis potentially to do before we can put forward particular assets for removal.
Yeah, are we going to, well, I'll ask the question.
Yeah.
Are we going to, as a council, go through a lot of the asset schedule too? Or are we going to leave it to lots of you, Mary? Now she's got it.
I can reply to the chair. So essentially our asset schedule is used for insurance purposes. So this is just a sample of some of the buildings that we have insured at the moment. So the project that's undertaken each year with governance and the managers of various areas is to go through this line by line. So for example, in identifying what requires insurance or what could be removed. So for example, there was an item on this line that was a PCYC car park. So I'm not quite sure how that came through on the asset schedule, but it is on the asset schedule and it is currently insured. So essentially, from an insurance point of view, you would not normally insure certain items, and the car park would be one of them. So it was coded, it's picked up through the coding process.
So is that, so through the chair, David, is that something that we as a council should have review of as well, rather than leave it to, what?
So I guess the intention, again through the chair, the intention of this project is I will, I suppose, do the initial cleanse of the schedule so that items that are definitely obvious items not for insurance will be removed. That was a coding error, and then before any asset is I suppose removed from the schedule, it will be just popped into a different database, and it will be listed and provided to council for review as potential assets for consideration. So at a much later date, you will get a spreadsheet of assets, and then the question will be posed, similar to the example Marianne provided, do we want to insure toilet blocks? At the moment, we have X number of toilet blocks in let's say, flood-free locations, they're identified as a low risk, and this is how much, for example, if it's possible, this is how much it costs us to have them insured. Are we happy to identify that as an exclusion item and look at self-insurance? So in the budget going forward, council will have a clear list of the items that are not covered by insurance and what we may potentially want to set aside in a separate account to cover should an incident occur that you would want to spend money on repairing that asset. Does that clarify?
Yeah, so David, the summary, is that a recommendation that Mary's just placed, that yes, there is going to be a deal of work sent to us for review, so, but that's not in this?
No, so this was an information report purely just to let you know that we're undertaking a body of work, and once we're at that stage of making a recommendation to you, we will provide that with a decision for you to make. At this stage, we're not there. We're just letting you know, I guess, what's happening in the governance area, to, I guess, give you some assurance around, we're trying to manage this in a professional and structured way, and that on the 10th of April, we're having the LGM people come to talk to you, and this is a bit of information to inform that discussion. And then after that discussion, in the background, we're working on the insurance portfolio. So all of this will inform that decision making. So you're not coming in at the end of the process to make a decision out of the blue without understanding the process we're going through. So I'm hoping in that providing this type of information now and the strategy session with LGM, that will allow you to make a more informed decision when the decision actually comes to the table to be made.
That's good, thank you.
Just through the chair, councillors aware of how LGM and LG assets and how that works?
Sort of.
Through the local government association. It is owned by local government. We're all members and provide a bank guarantee, and so we share the risk. But it has generated, well, especially LGM, mutual liability has saved several hundreds of thousands of dollars for local government in the past 15 years from its operation.
Hasn't dollars come back into the council from those guys?
Or savings in premiums, and they do make 2 dividend payments. So, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we have to be funding the LGM in excess of what our insurance needs are.
No,
That's,
we still need a competitive
yes,
look at it
yeah,
every
absolutely.
now and then, yes.
Any other questions, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
No, sorry, it was before, Mary referred to coming back to the second part of the report, and I thought, well, she hadn't got back to the second part, but no, look, that's fine, I think the review's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Just took it.
as I say, it's always scary when you go back, it's like your telephone bill, you find all these things you don't need, and you've been paying for it several months, so.
And that's,
And it'd be good to understand also in that public liability space, what actually that, what spaces does that include, what activities does that include? Because I think what's coming to light through some of the work you've done, Mary, is that where we thought places were covered or groups were covered through their activities, in actual fact they're not. So it'd be good. In actual fact, what you're doing is great. It's giving some clarity in the space that we have not had clarity in before, and identifying some gaps usually, and that not necessarily needing to be filled by us.
So I guess through the chair, that's the benefit of having the insurance people here, where so the majority of the report, like, it's not going to essentially just focus on assets, because there are, as you say, public liability, councillors and officers, indemnity. There was some questions raised at a previous standing committee where the discussion comes up about councillors making decisions and accepting reports and exposure and risk and liability cover in that regard. So what LGM have offered is any councillor would like to email through any type of question at all, I can collate them and submit them so they can not just reply on the spot with the heavy terminology, but they can specifically link it to what our insurance cover provides and what the excess or the exclusions or inclusions for CHRC is as we stand right now. So they will cover all that type of insurance, public liability, involvement with community reference groups, particular events that are held in the community as a community event but not a council event. So just clarifying essentially what constitutes council and how you identify what council is when it comes to cover for insurance purposes. So it is a really, really good opportunity to have really good detail on that. Feel free to email me.
Thanks, Judy.
No more questions around the insurance? Strategic plan.
Great. So again, just an information report, just to keep you appraised of where we are in the corporate plan cycle. So hopefully you've all seen the corporate plan advertising out there in the paper, on the website, on the internal website as well. So that was released on the 1st of March. It is due to close today. It has been provided individually to community reference groups as well. To date, unfortunately, we've only had 59 responses feedback-wise, which is a little disappointing, but anyway, we're trying to rally the troops and see if we can get a few more responses back, but we may leave that open until the end of the week to see if we can get a few more responses in. But anyway, we've certainly tried to get some feedback in on that, and we'll provide that feedback when we'll collate it probably towards the end of the week, Andrea, I'd imagine. So we'll leave that until maybe close of business Friday to see if we can get a few more inputs into that. A briefing was provided prior to the release to the whole of management team, where the opportunity was discussed with the whole group on how the corporate plan was a new start for us all, and that we could have the opportunity to have our staff provide input to that it was released to the staff prior to that date and through their managers to have that conversation and to talk about the linkages that provided through our operational plan as well. So it was encouraged for all of the staff to provide feedback. The internal briefing focused on the clear opportunity that was being provided for refocusing on the key strategic focus areas that the council have chosen to identify through the draft corporate plan, and that chance for that linkage for all staff through to their day-to-day work and the ties from that for broader direction for the future of council. So it's been marketed obviously as a very clear opportunity for everyone to be involved in. So the linkage is critical in building our organisation and our culture going forward of accountability and the responsibility for outcomes that are achieved individually and as for the organisation. So we've had the discussion from the whole of management perspective, and we've followed up with some key emails to ensure that the management team are working individually with their departments to talk about the corporate plan and also to engage on starting to draft their operational plans. So there's been a toolkit provided on the operational planning as well, and how to look at the operational plan from a bit of a different perspective and ensure that we develop some very realistic timeframes this time around, and we don't end up in the same position that we were previously, where we were trying to, by the end of last year, still try and set in stone some very clear objectives. So that's been a very clear message that's been pressed out through the whole of management team. We're looking at very clear, realistic timeframes, performance measures and key performance indicators. So each individual department working on that, we will come back together in April to work as a team, as a whole of management team on that, and then the draft will come back for your view of the operational plan at that time as well. So work is continuing in the background whilst the feedback is coming in on that was just a little bit of an update to let you know that things are happening, and whilst the numbers are a little disappointing, we will certainly have a good look at all of the feedback when it's on deck and provide that to you as well. Questions? Any feedback you've received about the corporate plan?
Through the chair, I mean, I don't know, is that good or bad if we get 59 responses? Is that accepting, or is that just stunned, or, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe people are happy with the direction and was it forward? 59.
That's a pretty good response.
Really?
I would hope for more.
I guess what's the thing on the comments in the 59?
Yes.
Say positive or negative?
Negative, yes, yes. So I guess, yes, we'll have a look at the end of the week and we'll get those around and see what the majority of those indicate.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, yeah, so today in council meeting, in live streaming, is it worth the mayor mentioning that it's on? It's open up and
Give it a shout to them, yeah.
Absolutely, let's
you might
take
get enough,
advantage of the
you might get
technology.
through of those that watch the live stream.
Absolutely, absolutely. Opportunity to contribute to our corporate plan.
You might be careful what we wish to bring forward in response.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions around it? No, there was a meeting action. It's only the one that it's just a letter, so I've just left that. It's a letter to the SES. I just couldn't do it. It's just sitting in mine at the moment.
What is it, David?
Just a letter to all the SES
Thank you.
groups.
Oh,
Thank you.
So that's the only.
See if we can provide some assistance with that.
The other one was, material personal interest or conflict of interest. That's all good. We have no petitions.
Mr. Chairman,
We've got any general business. Right, I can close the meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.